The sun bled low across the Arizona sky, a molten scar sinking behind the cliffs, painting the dry earth in shades of fire and rust. Eli Carter worked alone by the fence line, his broad hands steady despite the years that had carved furrows into them. The hammer rose and fell in a slow rhythm, the wooden post shaking under every strike. The sound carried through the still air, echoing faintly across the canyon walls before vanishing into the hush of the desert. It was a sound that meant peace to him, routine, solitude, the kind of quiet a man earns after a lifetime of noise. He straightened, wiping sweat from his brow with a sleeve faded from sun and work. His back ached, but he didn't mind. Out here, pain was a kind of company. It reminded him he was still alive, even when most of the people he'd once known weren't. The ranch stretched before him like a faded memory. Fences half broken, barn roof missing shingles, windmill creaking as it turned lazily against the dying light. It wasn't much, but it was his, and for a man like Eli, that was enough. Then he heard it, a faint, rhythmic thud coming from the direction of the trail. Hoofbeats, slow at first, then steady. He turned, shading his eyes, watching as a figure appeared over the ridge. A rider. A woman. She was dressed in black, a long coat flapping around her legs as her horse picked its way down the dusty slope. The wind lifted her hat brim just enough to show the edge of a pale face, though her eyes were shadowed. Something about her posture, straight, unflinching, deliberate, made Eli's stomach tighten. She didn't look like a traveler lost or a buyer come for cattle. No, this one had a purpose. He set the hammer down and adjusted his hat, watching her approach. She rode until she was close enough for him to see the dust crusting her boots and the dull gleam of a revolver at her hip. The horse stopped a few yards from him, snorting softly, its breath misting in the cooling air. Eli cleared his throat. "Evening, ma'am. You looking for someone?" She didn't answer right away. Her gloved hand stayed on the reins, her gaze locked on him. It wasn't the look of a stranger curious about directions. It was the look of someone weighing something heavy, like she was searching his face for proof of a crime. "You don't remember me, do you?" she said finally. Her voice was quiet, low, but it cut through the air sharper than any blade. Eli frowned. "Can't say I do." "Should I?" She swung down from the saddle, boots landing soft on the dirt. The way she moved, cautious but sure, told him she'd been on the road a long time. She stepped closer, and as the sun slid lower, the light hit her face. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe mid-30s, but her eyes carried years far beyond that. Hard eyes, wounded eyes. "No," she said. "You wouldn't remember. Men like you never do." Eli shifted, uneasy. "Ma'am, I meet a lot of folks. Ranch hands, traders, drifters. If we met before, maybe you can remind me." Her jaw clenched. "You killed a man in Dodge City, 12 years ago." Eli felt his body go still. Dodge City. The name hit him like a stone dropped into deep water, ripples spreading outward through memory. He hadn't heard it spoken aloud in years. He swallowed, his throat dry. "I've been through Dodge," he said slowly. "But I don't—" She cut him off, reaching into her coat. Eli tensed instinctively, his hand hovering near his holster, but she didn't draw a gun. Instead, she pulled out something small, shining faintly in her palm. She held it up between two fingers. A bullet. It glinted in the fading light, brass and cold. She stepped closer until he could see the faint knife marks along its side. Letters, crudely carved but unmistakable. E. Carter. The world seemed to tilt. The dry wind hissed through the grass. For a heartbeat, Eli couldn't breathe. That name, scratched into the metal, was his full name, not the one he used for business or among strangers. He'd only ever marked one bullet that way. Once. Long ago. He stared at it, his mind clawing backward through time, searching dusty corners of memory he'd locked away. A saloon, a fight. A gun drawn too quick. A young man's face, angry, proud, reckless. He'd said something Eli couldn't recall now, something about justice or revenge. Then there'd been noise, shouting, and one single shot. Eli had told himself it was self-defense, that the kid had drawn first. But deep down, he'd never been sure. He'd tried not to think about it. Until now, he looked back at her. "Where did you get that?" His voice was low, almost a whisper. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of rage and sorrow. "From my brother's chest." The words hit him like a physical blow. He took a step back, his boots crunching in the dirt. "Your brother?" "Samuel Price," she said, her voice trembling for the first time. "You shot him in the Blue Lantern Saloon. You said he came at you, that he pulled first. But I found the witnesses, Carter. They said he never even touched his gun." Eli felt his throat close. The name. Yes, Samuel. It came back like thunder after silence. The boy's wild eyes. The spilt whiskey. The way his hand had twitched toward his belt. Eli had been younger then, quicker to act. Quicker to justify what couldn't be undone. He had written the name on the bullet himself, drunk and bitter, thinking it would scare men off if they knew whose bullet they might end up on. He hadn't realized one would find its mark. "I didn't know," he started, but the words sounded hollow, even to him. "You didn't care," she snapped. Her composure cracked, and for a moment, her voice broke under the weight of 12 years of grief. "You just walked away, got yourself a ranch, a quiet life. While I buried him with that bullet still inside," Eli's hands trembled slightly. He felt old, smaller somehow beneath her gaze. The desert around them seemed to shrink, the air thick with ghosts. He'd seen death before, plenty of it. But this wasn't a stranger's pain. It was his own past come calling. He bent slowly, picked up his hat that the wind had nudged off his head, and looked at her with eyes that no longer held the steady calm of a man sure of himself. "Ma'am, I won't make excuses. I done things I can't take back. That night in Dodge, I was drunk, scared. The world was mean then. I thought every man I met was looking to kill me." Her lip quivered, but her eyes stayed locked on his. "And that makes it right?" "No." The word fell heavy. "It don't." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind tugged at her coat, carrying with it the scent of sage and dust. The horse pawed the ground impatiently. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Eli bent down, his knees creaking, and reached out his weathered hand. "Let me see it," he said quietly. She hesitated, then extended her palm. The bullet rested there, gleaming like an accusation. He took it gently, turning it over between his fingers, staring at the crude letters he'd carved himself so long ago. His name looked different now, uglier somehow, heavier. He closed his fist around it, then looked back at her. "What do you want from me?" She swallowed hard, her eyes glassy. "I wanted you to remember. That's all. To know his name. To feel something." He nodded slowly, shame pressing down like the desert heat. "I remember now." Tears welled in her eyes, though she blinked them back. She took a shaky breath, as if gathering what little strength she had left. "Good. Then my ride wasn't wasted." She turned to leave, pulling herself back into the saddle. Her movements were sharp now, efficient, like a woman trying to keep from falling apart. Eli wanted to say something, an apology, a prayer, anything, but no words came. He just stood there watching her, the bullet still warm from her hand. As she started down the trail, the wind picked up again, swirling dust between them. She paused once, glancing back over her shoulder. Her voice came soft but sure. "You carved your name on that bullet, Carter. I made sure you'd never forget it again." Then she rode off, her silhouette shrinking against the blood-red horizon until it disappeared entirely. Eli stood motionless long after the sound of hooves had faded. The sky turned purple, then black, stars bleeding through the darkness like tiny wounds. He opened his hand and stared at the bullet once more, his name catching the starlight. He crouched down and placed it in the dirt where she'd stood, pressing it gently into the earth. For a long time he didn't move. The desert was silent except for the wind whispering through the grass, carrying the faint echo of a woman's voice and the memory of a man he could never make amends to. When at last he rose, the night had claimed the land completely. He turned toward the house, his boots heavy, his steps slow. Each creak of the porch board seemed louder than before, like the sound of years collapsing behind him. Inside, the small cabin was dim, the single lamp flickering weakly against the walls. He sat down by the table where an old Bible lay, its pages yellowed and frayed. His rough fingers traced the edge of it, but he didn't open it. He didn't pray. Not yet. Outside, the wind carried on, sweeping across the plains. Somewhere, miles away, a lone rider moved beneath the stars, her heart still heavy but her vengeance complete.